Welcome to Bare Metal Cyber, the podcast that bridges cybersecurity and education in a way that's engaging, informative, and practical. Each week, we dive into pressing cybersecurity topics, explore real-world challenges, and break down actionable advice to help you navigate today's digital landscape. If you're enjoying this episode, visit baremetalcyber.com, where over 2 million people last year explored cybersecurity, insights, resources, and expert content. You'll also find my books covering key cybersecurity topics, Beyond Passwords, the Future of Secure Identity Management. The way we verify identity online is undergoing a fundamental shift as organizations move beyond traditional passwords toward more secure, user-friendly authentication methods. Password-based security has long been a weak link, with stolen credentials fueling data breaches, phishing attacks, and identity fraud at an unprecedented scale. Passwordless authentication leverages technologies such as biometrics, security keys, and adaptive authentication to reduce reliance on static credentials while improving both security and usability. However, transitioning to a passwordless future comes with challenges, from implementation complexities to emerging threats in biometric security and post-quantum cryptography. As organizations adopt these new authentication models, understanding their benefits, risks, and best practices will be critical to ensuring a seamless and secure future for identity management. Introduction to passwordless authentication. Passwordless authentication is revolutionizing how we verify identity by eliminating traditional passwords in favor of more secure and user-friendly alternatives. Instead of relying on static credentials that users must remember and frequently reset, passwordless systems use biometric authentication, security keys, and one-time passcodes to grant access. This shift moves away from the long-standing reliance on shared secrets, replacing them with unique, context-aware authentication methods that are harder to steal or compromise. As cyber threats become more sophisticated, organizations are increasingly turning to passwordless authentication to enhance security and streamline the user experience. The goal is to create a system where authentication is both frictionless and resistant to the common attacks that plagued traditional password-based logins. Passwords have long been the Achilles heel of cybersecurity, presenting a constant target for attackers. Whether through phishing scams, credential stuffing, or brute force attacks, passwords remain one of the most exploited vulnerabilities in security today. Weak or reused passwords are a goldmine for cybercriminals, allowing them to gain access to multiple accounts with minimal effort. The cost of managing passwords is also staggering, with organizations spending billions annually on password resets, user support, and recovery mechanisms. Beyond security concerns, the frustration of dealing with complex password policies leads to poor user experience, often causing employees or customers to seek workarounds that ultimately undermine security. The reliance on passwords has become an outdated practice that introduces more risks than benefits. The rise of remote work, increasing regulatory demands, and advancements in authentication technologies have all contributed to the growing adoption of passwordless authentication. With a dispersed workforce accessing sensitive data from various locations and devices, traditional password-based security no longer meets the demands of modern business environments. Regulations have pushed companies to adopt stronger authentication measures to protect user privacy and mitigate the risk of data breaches. At the same time, innovations in authentication methods have made passwordless solutions more accessible, reliable, and cost-sensible. Users themselves are driving this shift, seeking faster, more seamless login experiences that eliminate the hassle of remembering and resetting passwords. The convergence of these factors has made passwordless authentication not just a possibility, but a necessity. The technologies enabling passwordless authentication are diverse, each playing a critical role in securing identity verification. Biometric authentication, such as fingerprint scanning and facial recognition, provides a highly secure and user-friendly way to confirm identity. Public key infrastructure ensures encryption and secure key exchange, making it difficult for attackers to intercept credentials. Hardware security keys offer a physical authentication factor that is resistant to phishing and remote attacks. Token-based systems and app-based authentication, such as push notifications and one-time passcodes, add additional layers of security while maintaining a smooth user experience. These technologies, when combined, create a robust authentication framework that is not only more secure than passwords, but also more adaptable to the evolving threat landscape. How passwordless authentication improves security. Traditional authentication methods rely heavily on passwords, making credential theft one of the most persistent cybersecurity threats. Passwords are easily compromised through phishing, brute force attacks, and large-scale data breaches, where stolen credentials are sold and reused across multiple platforms. By eliminating passwords from authentication processes, organizations remove a primary attack vector, reducing the chances of unauthorized access. Unique authentication factors, such as biometrics or security keys, cannot be easily replicated or stolen like a simple password. Even if authentication tokens are intercepted, they often have limited use due to their dynamic nature, reducing their value to attackers and forcing them to seek more difficult attack methods. Multi-factor authentication has long been recognized as a stronger security approach, but its implementation often introduces complexity and user friction. Passwordless authentication simplifies multi-factor authentication by integrating biometric verification or device-based authentication seamlessly into the login process. Instead of requiring users to enter both a password and a secondary code, passwordless multi-factor authentication combines trusted elements, such as a registered device and facial recognition, to verify identity. This streamlined approach makes multi-factor security more accessible and encourages wider adoption, especially in environments where security fatigue leads to weak password hygiene. Context-aware authentication further strengthens trust by analyzing factors such as device history, location, and behavior patterns to determine whether a login attempt should be granted or challenged. Passwords are frequently shared among employees, whether out of convenience or necessity, creating a major security gap in access control. Passwordless authentication eliminates this risk by tying identity verification directly to an individual through biometrics or hardware keys that cannot be shared. Organizations can further limit insider threats by implementing granular authentication policies that enforce access based on specific roles and responsibilities. By monitoring authentication events for anomalies, security teams can detect suspicious behavior, such as unauthorized access attempts, from unexpected locations or devices. Strong identity verification ensures that only the intended user can authenticate, reducing the risks associated with compromised credentials or collusion among insiders. The reliance on centralized password storage presents a significant privacy and security challenge, as massive credential leaks have demonstrated time and time again. Passwordless authentication reduces this risk by eliminating the need for vast repositories of user passwords, lowering the incentive for attackers to target authentication databases. With encryption applied throughout the authentication process, user data remains protected from interception, reducing exposure even in the event of a breach. Many passwordless solutions also align with stringent privacy regulations, ensuring compliance with evolving legal requirements. By minimizing the amount of sensitive credential data stored and transmitted, passwordless authentication enhances user privacy while strengthening overall security. Challenges and risks of passwordless authentication. Implementing passwordless authentication is far from a plug-and-play solution, particularly for organizations with legacy systems that were built with password-based authentication in mind. Many enterprises still rely on outdated infrastructure that lacks native support for modern authentication methods, requiring extensive modifications or middleware solutions to bridge the gap. Security must also be carefully balanced with user experience, ensuring that authentication remains both seamless and secure without introducing unnecessary friction. Users often access multiple devices and platforms throughout their day, requiring a passwordless system that can maintain security across a diverse ecosystem without locking them out. Compatibility with third-party applications further complicates implementation, as many services still rely on traditional username nation models, forcing businesses to adopt hybrid authentication strategies during the transition. Biometric authentication is a cornerstone of passwordless security, but it introduces new challenges regarding data privacy and security. Unlike passwords, biometric identifiers cannot be changed if compromised, making biometric data theft a serious risk. If a fingerprint or facial scan is stolen, the user cannot simply reset it like a password, leading to long-term security implications. Additionally, concerns over surveillance and misuse of biometric data raise ethical questions, especially as governments and private companies collect and store this information. Striking a balance between usability and privacy is essential, ensuring that biometric data is securely stored, encrypted, and used strictly for authentication rather than broader tracking or profiling purposes. Passwordless authentication often depends on physical devices, such as security keys, smartphones, or other trusted hardware, to verify identity. While this removes the vulnerabilities associated with passwords, it introduces the risk of device loss or theft, potentially locking users out of their accounts. Unauthorized access to a trusted device could also pose a significant security threat if proper safeguards are not in place. Organizations embracing passwordless authentication must implement robust device management policies, particularly in bring-your-own-device environments where users mix personal and work devices. Ensuring that lost or compromised devices can be quickly deauthorized while providing users with fallback authentication methods is critical to maintaining both security and accessibility. Adopting a passwordless authentication model requires significant investment in both technology and personnel. Organizations must allocate resources for acquiring and deploying hardware-based authentication solutions, such as biometric scanners or security keys, which may not be feasible for all budgets. Training employees and users to adapt to new authentication methods is another challenge, as resistance to change can slow adoption and create frustration. Continuous maintenance, updates, and monitoring of passwordless systems are necessary to address evolving threats and ensure long-term reliability. As organizations scale their passwordless infrastructure, costs can quickly rise, making it imperative to assess return on investment and ensure that security improvements justify the expenditure. The future of identity management beyond passwordless. Decentralized identity systems are reshaping the way individuals manage and verify their identities by shifting control away from centralized authorities and toward the users themselves. Built on blockchain technology, these systems enable secure and tamper-resistant identity verification without the need for a traditional identity provider, such as a government agency or large corporation. By adopting self-sovereign identity, users can control how their identity data is stored and shared, reducing the risk of mass data breaches caused by compromised central databases. This approach not only enhances privacy, but also eliminates the need for organizations to store and manage vast amounts of personally identifiable information, reducing regulatory and security burdens. As decentralized identity gains traction, it promises a future where authentication is more private, secure, and resistant to fraud. Context-aware and adaptive authentication takes security a step further by analyzing user behavior, location, and device characteristics to dynamically adjust security measures. Instead of relying on static authentication factors, these systems use artificial intelligence to detect anomalies in login attempts, flagging suspicious activity in real time. Risk-based authentication policies evaluate factors such as login frequency, IP address reputation, and biometric behavior to determine the appropriate level of authentication required. If a user attempts to log in from an unusual location or device, the system may prompt for additional verification rather than granting automatic access. By combining behavioral analysis, contextual signals, and trust scoring, organizations can create an authentication experience that is both highly secure and frictionless for legitimate users. Expanding passwordless authentication to the Internet of Things and edge devices presents new challenges, as these devices often lack the processing power to handle traditional authentication methods. Seamless identity verification in Internet of Things ecosystems requires lightweight cryptographic protocols that can operate efficiently on constrained devices while maintaining strong security. Many Internet of Things devices, from smart home systems to industrial sensors, must authenticate without user interaction, requiring a secure and automated approach. Edge computing environments introduce additional complexities as authentication must occur at the device level rather than relying on centralized, cloud-based mechanisms. Ensuring end-to-end security for IoT authentication will be critical as these systems continue to expand across industries, from healthcare to manufacturing. The rise of quantum computing threatens to break many of the cryptographic methods that underpin today's authentication systems, making post-quantum authentication a pressing concern. As quantum computers advance, they could render existing encryption algorithms obsolete, necessitating the transition to quantum-safe cryptographic techniques. Organizations must begin preparing for this shift by researching and adopting quantum-resistant authentication protocols that can withstand the power of quantum attacks. Future-proofing identity management systems will require a proactive approach, ensuring that passwordless methods and authentication frameworks remain secure in a post-quantum world. Addressing these challenges now will be essential to maintaining trust and security in digital identity as quantum capabilities continue to evolve. Best practices for transitioning to passwordless authentication. Successfully transitioning to passwordless authentication requires careful planning and a phased approach to minimize disruption while maximizing security. Organizations should begin by conducting readiness assessments to evaluate both technical infrastructure and user preparedness, identifying potential roadblocks before implementation. High-risk applications, such as those handling sensitive data or financial transactions, should be prioritized for early adoption, with passwordless authentication gradually rolled out across other systems. Testing in controlled environments allows information technology teams to fine-tune configurations, address compatibility issues, and ensure a smooth transition. Gathering user feedback during pilot phases helps refine the experience, ensuring that authentication methods remain both secure and user-friendly. User education is a critical component of successful passwordless adoption, as resistance to change often stems from a lack of understanding. Training programs should clearly explain how passwordless authentication works, dispelling myths that it is less secure or overly complicated. Addressing common misconceptions about biometric data storage, security keys, and authentication processes helps build trust and encourage widespread adoption. Simplified onboarding processes such as intuitive setup guides and automated enrollment reduce friction and make it easier for users to embrace the new system. Organizations must also provide clear fallback options, ensuring that users can regain access if they lose their authentication device or encounter issues. Passwordless authentication should seamlessly integrate with existing security frameworks to enhance rather than disrupt an organization's overall security posture. Aligning passwordless solutions with zero-trust architectures ensures that identity verification remains continuous and adaptive rather than a one-time event. Compatibility with multi-factor authentication and single sign-on systems allows organizations to maintain security best practices while improving user experience. Security, information, and event management tools should be leveraged to monitor authentication events in real time, providing insights into potential security threats. Regular audits of passwordless implementations help identify vulnerabilities, ensuring that the system remains resilient against emerging attack vectors. Staying ahead of evolving threats is essential, as attackers will inevitably adapt their methods to target passwordless authentication systems. Organizations must continuously update passwordless technologies to incorporate the latest security improvements and defenses against new attack techniques. Monitoring advancements in hacking strategies, such as bypassing biometric authentication or exploiting device vulnerabilities, allow security teams to respond proactively. Collaborating with industry peers and participating in security standardization efforts helps create stronger, more resilient authentication practices. Investing in ongoing research and innovation ensures that identity management systems remain both future-proof and adaptable to the ever-changing cybersecurity landscape. Conclusion: The transition to passwordless authentication represents a significant evolution in identity management, offering stronger security, reduced attack surfaces, and a better user experience. However, adopting these technologies requires careful planning, balancing security with usability, and addressing challenges such as implementation complexity, device dependency, and privacy concerns. As organizations move beyond passwords, integrating adaptive authentication, decentralized identity, and quantum-resistant security measures will be key to staying ahead of emerging threats. The future of identity management will not be defined by a single technology, but by a layered, flexible approach that prioritizes security without compromising accessibility. As threats evolve, so too must authentication, ensuring that digital identities remain protected in an increasingly interconnected world. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Bare Metal Cyber. If you enjoyed the podcast, be sure to subscribe and share it. You can find all our latest content, including newsletters, podcasts, articles, and books, at baremetalcyber.com. Join the growing community and explore the insights that reached over 2 million people last year. Your support keeps this community thriving, and I truly appreciate every listen, follow, and share. Until next time, stay safe. Knowledge is power.